Welcome back, Lagos. Well, that was Zainab said that was intense. That was very intense. I have my next guest here. It gets even more intense today. So, Michael, I know we need more time, and I will. Lagos, Nigeria. I know you're all joining, and we had several messages, and I couldn't answer any of your calls. But there will be a much longer interview with Michael Freeman, the ambassador of Israel. But I need to move on to my next guest. He's distinguished. He's a friend of the house, right? We like his opinion. And just imagine, I just had the Israeli ambassador. Now I have, well, if I call him His Excellency, I'm sure you won't mind. Okay. Well, I'm going to call him His Excellency. All right. How do I pronounce this? Sadaukin. Is that you're laughing at me? You're well, let me try. Sadaukin Shinkafi is also the former Minister of Aviation, Federal Republic of Nigeria. He is Chief Femi Fani-Kayode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I don't know whether you got a chance to listen to my interview with Michael Freeman. Did you get a chance?
Sadly, I don't like to listen too much to people like that. I prefer to read essays, but I don't listen to Zionists too often. We've had too much coming from them, and I don't let them dictate the narrative. But you're free to ask me anything that you feel I should comment on or what he said to you. I prefer to talk to you than to share a platform with him.
Okay, I understand. No worries. Let's start. Yesterday, or rather overnight, Israel has retaliated, right, to Iran. Iran retaliated to Israel. Israel is yet to accept, to admit, to own up to the responsibility that they bombed the Iranian embassy in Syria on the 1st of April. What are your thoughts on that? In fact, Michael, if I may just say, Michael claimed on this show just before you joined that Israel is not responsible for that.
Well, I think by now the world is used to the lies of the Zionists, particularly the lies of Netanyahu, his officials, his ministers, and of course his ambassadors, which includes your guest that spoke earlier on this program. How can he say that Israel was not responsible for this feeble and ridiculous little attack that they took, that they called retaliation, that took place in the early hours of this morning? The American government, through official spokesmen, have now confirmed it. The whole world has confirmed it. Everybody knows that it was them. It was a feeble attack. Even their own Minister for National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, very colorful character, a man that has been convicted 9 times for terrorism, who is now the Minister of National Security for Israel, called it a feeble attack. Of course they responded, and they were so scared of what Iran would do in retaliation that they're now terrified. They cannot even come to admit that they responded, simply because it was so feeble, it was so pathetic. And what this tells you is that Israel is very good at killing women and children in Gaza and elsewhere in the world, targeting civilians, bombing people, and indulging in ethnic cleansing, mass murder, and genocide when it comes to civilians. But when it comes to standing up to a nation state as powerful and as strong as the Islamic Republic of Iran, they got cold feet and they ran away. And of course, the Americans had told them that if you do this, you're on your own. They could not have gone any further. They failed woefully. It was a shameful display of Israeli feebleness and weakness. And I think they're very ashamed of themselves. And I laugh at them. I laugh all the way to Israel and back to Nigeria. They're just a bunch of cowards, good at killing women and children, but cannot stand up for themselves in a real fight when it comes to fighting other nations and other men.
Israel continues to deny the numbers that we get for the civilians they've killed in Gaza. In fact, Michael Freeman told me in the interview before yours that 15,000 out of the 33,000 figure from Gaza are all Hamas terrorists. That's what he claims. He also says he doesn't accept that Israel doesn't accept that Israel has killed 17,000 children in Gaza. What are your thoughts on that?
The Israeli ambassador to Nigeria, his prime minister, Netanyahu, and members of the cabinet, like I said earlier, are basically nothing but pathological liars and genocidal maniacs. And I say this with every sense of responsibility. It is not just the so-called Hamas-controlled media in Gaza that has come up with these figures of 30,000 plus killed, including 15,000 children. It is not just them. Human Rights Watch and virtually every single media organization in the world has confirmed this, and virtually every single organization that is entrenched there, including all the medical organizations, including Red Cross, everybody else, virtually all the churches, all the mosques, everybody has confirmed this massive carnage, which now qualifies to be the new Holocaust. Now, in Israel, I believe, it is a crime to deny the Holocaust, which took place in the Second World War. I believe that's a crime in their country. Well, in my view, it's also a crime to deny the fact that 30,000 innocent, defenseless civilians have been butchered by the Israeli forces in Gaza over the last 6 to 7 months. They will deny this because they know that it makes them look so bad. Yet it doesn't stop them from doing it. They're about to go into Rafah. They have been killing, they have been maiming, they have been targeting children, they have been targeting hospitals, they've been targeting mosques and churches. They've just been killing like there's no, like there's no tomorrow, and they enjoy doing it, and they celebrate it each time. They have a national security minister who openly said that there should be a nuclear bomb dropped on Gaza. They have a national security minister who has said that they should completely eliminate the Palestinian people, and particularly those in Gaza and in the West Bank, and send them to 25 different countries at 25,000 people per country. They have openly said they should push them into Sinai Desert. They have also said that they should drown them in the Mediterranean Sea in order to free the land for the Israelis. This is wrong. This is what they do. This is their nature. And denying it now is laughable, if not for the fact that this is a very, very serious issue and so many people have been killed. We think of the women. We think of the children. It's not about religion. It's not about Muslims. It's not about Christians. It's not about anything other than the fact that we are human beings. It's about humanity. And they have indulged in this barbarity and this carnage, and they will pay a heavy price for this in the not too distant future.
Yesterday, there was a vote at the UN for Palestine to become a fully fledged member of the UN. Everybody voted in favor of. It was vetoed again by the US. And it is now said, or would you agree with the growing notion that the US is becoming more and more isolated from their partners? France, UK abstained, all those other countries. Would you say that the United States is becoming more and more isolated, just as Israel is?
There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's a slap in the face for the Americans that have said all along that they believe in a two-state solution. Clearly, they do not believe in a two-state solution. Otherwise, they would have allowed Palestine to be, recognized as a fully official member of the United Nations yesterday. They shot themselves in the foot and they showed their true colors. All along, America has been the obstacle to progress, in my view. All along, it's been America that has been arming Israel, that has been allowing them to do the sort of things they're doing, funding them, supporting billions of dollars per year. They are really the problem. Without America, Israel would be nothing. Without America, Israel would not be a genocidal, barbaric nation state, which is basically entrenched on ethnic supremacy, ethno-supremacist state, which looks down on dark people, people of black skin like myself, and people with brown skin like the Arabs. This is a European settler state. It is a European colony in the very heart of the Middle East. They're not even Semites. This is basically what is happening. And America, in a very, very sort of misguided way, in my view, has decided to stand by them no matter what. Now, it's okay if you love Israel. Many of us have loved Israel, or what we believe to be the real Israel, in the past. It's okay to do that. But we should also love the Palestinians. We should love humanity. And we should allow for either a two-state solution, which is what the West Bank and Fatah and the members of the West Bank, leadership of the West Bank, has always pushed for, or we should go a little bit further and say, why should there even be a two-state solution? Why not have just one massive state in that whole area of old Palestine, expand all the borders, and have a situation whereby Israel no longer exists, but you have a situation where you have one nation, everybody together, and it's one man, one vote. And in that equation, the Israelis would come out very, very badly. There would be a minority within the wider Arab state. This is basically what we should have. But if you're talking about a two-state solution, then for goodness sake, recognize the right of the Palestinian people to be represented in the UN. The Americans have shot themselves in the foot. Even their European allies have parted ways with them on this issue. And with this, in my view, it's a massive setback. It's a massive setback for progress in the region. And in my view, it will not augur well for American influence throughout the world.
We have what could easily be called now a delicate situation. Do you think Iran will respond to Israel's retaliation from this morning?
Well, let's look at it. The short answer to that is no, because it's a negligible, feeble, pathetic response, which any right-thinking person should just simply laugh at. It's not worth a response. It's pathetic. Almighty Israel, strong Israel, good at killing women and children, could not even respond to Iran. What did Iran do? Or where did it all start? Well, it started here. I mean, the Jews, the Jewish state, targeted an Iranian embassy in Damascus and bombed it, killing a number of very senior military commanders of the Islamic Republican Guard. In retaliation to that, and in response, the Iranians fired 300 missiles plus overnight, in one night, over the nation of Israel, targeting major cities, military installations, and so on and so forth. But you know what they did? They did it in a way that it would not damage Israel. It would simply take away their self-esteem and expose them for what they are, a bunch of cowards. How did they do that? They sent forward, or they fired very, very low-budget drones. That was the first one. Then they came across and hit them with second-grade old ballistic missiles. Then they now threw in a few cruise missiles. All of them not too state-of-the-art, not too modern. And they gave them hours' notice that these things were coming in order to enable them and the Americans and others to shoot them down. They didn't want to kill people. They're not like the Israelis. They didn't want to target innocent civilians. The only places that were actually hit, and they were hit by the cruise missiles, which are a little bit more sophisticated, were the two Israeli military bases from which the rockets were fired to bomb the Iranian embassy in Damascus. And they made their point. And what point was that? That we can erase every single city in Israel overnight if we choose to. Mind yourself, mind your language, don't provoke us, otherwise there will be no Israel tomorrow. They made that point very clearly. And immediately the Americans said, beg their little puppet Israel, do not respond. Please do not respond. Accept this as a victory, because nobody was killed, nothing was damaged. But Israel, stubborn as they have always been, felt it necessary to at least make a point. And they now made their point by sending 3 little drones in the sky, shot down in the sky over Isfahan, and that was about it. That's all they could do, because they were faced with a much more powerful force that could do a lot of damage to them if the matter now became a little bit more, complicated and escalated. Nobody wants that escalation, and I'm glad that it basically would have stopped here. But the Islamic Republic of Iran, I'm sure, will not find the time to be responding to modular drones or whatever the little objects were that were fired out of the sky that made no difference to them. And as you can see, we've seen footage from Isfahan today. The place is peaceful, nobody's worried, life goes on. So I think the Israelis, have shown the world that they are not capable of responding in a real fight, and they are weak, they are cowards, and I don't think Iran will bother with them from now.
It's unless of course
there's another attack, which I think they will get the beating of their lives if they tried that.
Yeah, it's interesting. For the last 25 years, we've been hearing Iran from Prime Minister Netanyahu. He seems to be, for want of a word, obsessed with Iran. You said something earlier. You said the real Israel. Can you contextualize that for my listeners, even for myself? What is the real Israel, and why is Prime Minister Netanyahu so obsessed with Iran?
Well, let me get to the issue of Israel first. Well, many years ago, thousands of years ago, there was a state of Israel, but there were also Palestinians and various other tribes living in that territory. And these people, these various peoples have lived throughout that territory together side by side for thousands of years. And then what happens? The Jews amongst them were driven into exile for the last 2,000 years or so, leaving only the Palestinians there. And that space, that area stretched from the Mediterranean Sea right up onto the Mediterranean Sea, right up to the river, and from the river to the sea. The whole of that area was Palestine, and it also had Israel incorporated within it. Now, what happened after that? Like I said, the Jews were driven into exile for almost 2,000 years into Europe and other parts of the world, where they were viciously persecuted and subjected to a Holocaust. Because the Germans in the Second World War butchered and killed almost 6 million Jews during the course of the Second World War, they felt that the Allies who defeated the Germans felt that it was important to somehow rehabilitate the Jews, give them their own state, give them a place they would feel safe, and send them back to where they came from. They were going to send them to Uganda, but thankfully, and thank God that we weren't afflicted with this in Africa, they chose to send them back to what they call their own promised land. And they sent them back there. And that's okay. But the problem is this: when they got there, there were already people there that had been living there for 2,000 years plus, who had been their neighbors before they were driven into exile. Those people were known as the Palestinians. The Israelis were put there, and an artificial nation state was created called Israel, at the exclusion of all others. And of course, it was born through violence. People like Menachem Begin, who was the leader of Irgun, who later became the prime minister of Israel, was responsible for the bombing of King David, the King David Hotel, in which many British people were killed. They were responsible for the downing, that is the bombing, the shooting down of the plane, which was flying Count Bernadotte, who was the Secretary General of the United Nations, who was coming to insist on some kind of peace formula which would have helped the Palestinians. They shot it down. They were killing the Brits. They were killing everybody. That is Irgun. And eventually they got their state given to them by Balfour and given to them by the Rothschild family in 1948. And that's where the new Israel now came. It was a relatively small space. Then there were a series of wars after that, and Israel grabbed more and more land. Now, when I say the old Palestine, I'm talking about everything in that whole area south of Lebanon. Everything. That's what I'm talking about. And within that space, you have millions of people coming together, different religious faiths, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, all in one. Now, that is the natural state. That is the natural Palestinian state. That is what should be there. Everybody living as equals. But what you have instead, you have a Zionist state, you have a Jewish state, which believes that Jews are superior. The laws that apply to Jews are different to the laws that apply to non-Jews. The laws that apply to Jews are different to the laws that apply to Arabs and Africans. And everybody of dark skin is subjected to a different set of laws to the Jews. And you have an apartheid state there. That's what they've created. Not only that, you have a state that is prepared to kill and maim and destroy anybody that does not agree with their supremacist philosophy. That is what you have. Now, that is not what destined for that area. What God destined, like in any democracy, anywhere in the world, is a situation where we are all equals, Arabs, Muslims, Christians, and non-Arabs living in that place, and everybody has one vote in order to ensure we have a proper democracy. You don't have that in Israel. They have annexed the land of the Arabs. They have annexed Gaza. They have annexed the West Bank. They have turned Gaza into a concentration camp, caused people to live like animals, and so on and so forth. And what we are saying is that all this must go away. Let the Palestinians, live like human beings, treat them like human beings, and let there be liberty in that country. From the river to the sea, let there be liberty, let there be one man and one vote, let there be a true democracy. And that's what I'm talking about when I say a real Palestinian state, a real state. Now, that is one option. The other is to have two separate states in which the Jews live in one and the Arabs live in the other, which, of course, nobody really is interested in anymore. The Israelis have said they've rejected it. The Israeli ambassador in London said she's rejected it. Netanyahu has rejected it. And now the Americans have killed it by ensuring that they would not, the only country in the world that would not allow Palestine to be recognized at the United Nations.
Okay, so why do you think Prime Minister Netanyahu is so obsessed with Iran? For the last 20 odd years, he's gone on.
He's obsessed with Iran simply because they know very well that Iran presents the greatest threat to the state of Israel, ever since its existence. It's not the Arabs. that are the real threat to them, because most of the Arab states around have been somehow compromised, and the Americans influence most of them. And therefore, they are very, very moderate in their approach, particularly towards the Palestinian people. Wrongly, in my view, but that's what they've chosen to do. And they're not even democracies, so they're not in a position to really stand and fight. But Iran is a democracy, regardless of the fact that many look down on her. She is a democracy. Ever since the 1979 revolution, Iran has been a democracy. It's a theocracy, yes, but people do vote, and they have a democratically elected government, and they are guided by the tenets of the Holy Quran. They believe that they're an Islamic state. They are an Islamic state, and they take great pride in that. They have a history of over 5,000, 6,000 years. They're a very powerful nation, a massive nation. They're very, very strong in battle, and they're not the kind of people you can push around very easily. Iran and the Persians were very good to the Jews over the years. It was Iran, King Cyrus, who was an Iranian king, that allowed the prophet Nehemiah to go back to Israel and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. It was an Iranian king that had people like Daniel and people like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego under them when the Jews had been put into bondage and captivity. They allowed them to flourish, they allowed them to thrive, and they'd always protected them. But what you have now, a situation whereby Iran on the borders of Arab territory presents a massive threat. It is a modern nation state militarily, economically, despite all the sanctions we've been facing over the years. And they've been consistent on one thing, that the state of Israel is a genocidal state. The state of Israel is an ethno-supremacist state. The state of Israel is an apartheid state. The state of Israel looks down on dark people, whether it be Arabs, whether it be Christians, whether they be Muslims, whether it be Africans. The state of Israel has no place in any part of the civilized world. They're not meant to kill people, and they kill, they maim, they destroy, and they are opposed to them. And they have been preparing for a war with Israel for many, many, many years. They also have strong allies within the region, like Hezbollah, like Hamas, like the Houthis, and so on and so forth. So where the Israelis have American support, the Iranians also have satellite support in virtually every single Middle Eastern country, including Iraq and Lebanon and so on and so forth, some of which, like Hezbollah, almost as powerful as the Israeli army itself. So of course Netanyahu is scared. Of course Netanyahu wets his pants every night. Of course Netanyahu has nightmares, because he knows one thing: without American support, that they will be crushed overnight by the Iranians. And of course, people then say, well, Israel has a nuclear weapon. If Iran pushes it too far, they will nuke them. But people forget that one statement that the Pakistanis have made over and over again, that if Iran or if Turkey is attacked by nuclear weapons from Israel, that they will use their nuclear weapons to nuke Israel in return. The whole Muslim world will come together to come against the little nation of Israel. Even the Christians, as they're doing increasingly by the day, will come together to oppose this genocidal ethno-supremacist state. And we will all come together and we will fight the nation of Israel. And that is why Iran is taking the lead in this matter. Turkey is also taking a lead, although Turkey, in my view, Erdogan particularly, their president, is a little bit restrained, but he's on his way out anyway. The next person that comes in as president of Turkey will be far more hardline. The whole world is coming together against Israel. They're losing their power, they're losing their grip. And why is Netanyahu scared? Because he knows very well that their hubris will be met with nemesis, and it will be Iran that will deliver that nemesis to them ultimately. And that's why he's obsessed with Iran. And whenever he wants to have extra money, he goes to the American Congress or United Nations, shows pictures of Iran, says Iran is building a bomb, Iran is building a bomb, Iran is coming for us, we need more money, collects the money to sustain their very vicious little state, which has no place and has nothing good to offer anybody that has a dark skin and that is not a Jew. This is wrong in this day and age. We don't all have to be Jews. We can be Christians, we can be Muslims, we can be black people, brown people, whatever. We should be treated with dignity and respect. And the butchery, the Holocaust of women and children in Gaza particularly, and over 30,000 in the West Bank, 600 people have been killed by them over the last 6 months. This is something that really should touch and concern everybody. It's an outrage. And I think anybody that can still speak about this issue without any form of emotion must be a vampire in the making. It's a very, very, very sad situation. It's a tragedy for the world, and something needs to be done about it.
Thank you. Lagos, Nigeria, look, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're streaming live, Nigeria Info FM. If you want to send in a message, I know you're already calling. You heard a lot there, right? Okay, 0700 993 993 993. The female only line is 0201 465 7190. You can send a WhatsApp to 0809 597 5805. You said something, and it triggered in my head what more and more people are calling the hypocrisy of the West. You said Iran is a democracy, albeit is a theocracy. And in actual fact, Saudi Arabia is a theocracy, but nobody ever speaks against Saudi Arabia. The United States is so quick to be friends with Saudi Arabia. United States is desperate to normalize relationship between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia does not vote. They do not vote. They're a monarchical theocracy. So I don't understand. How is it okay for Saudi Arabia to be like that, right? And the almighty American is suddenly best friends and wants Israel to be best friends with Saudi Arabia. But Iran is constantly called terrorist, this and all these other adjectives, all because Iran is a theocracy, yet it's a democratic theocracy. The lines the lines are going crazy, but I'm going to let you answer that. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
What you said has reflected the double standard of America. And of course, what you said is factually correct. I mean, the reality of it is that most of the Middle Eastern countries, Gulf states particularly, are ruled by autocrats and are ruled by royal families, which are propped up and supported by the American government. They're sustained by them, and there are many, many reasons for that. Of course, they are far more moderate in their views, and therefore they hold down the place, if you like, for them to ensure that you don't have a massive revolution and anti-American feeling manifesting itself throughout the Middle East. Now, I will not comment on my views about Saudi Arabia or the UAE and all the rest of them, each to his own as far as I'm concerned. If the Arabs of those countries are comfortable with this, that's up to them. If they're not comfortable with it, it's up to them to liberate themselves.
Absolutely.
But I'm looking at it purely from the context of Israel, which has no place in any civilized gathering or in the Committee of Nations. Let me give you an example. Our Arab brothers, particularly Muammar Gaddafi of Libya and Iran, who are Persians, and virtually every single Arab state, whether it's a democracy or it's an autocracy, they all stood with us in terms of the liberation struggle in Southern Africa when it came to South Africa, Rhodesia, and so on and so forth. They stood with the ANC and they stood with Robert.
Oh, network, don't do this now. It's frozen. Hello? Chief FFK, I can't hear you. Okay, let me try and answer calls right now because the line is frozen. Or is he back? Whilst our technical people try to do that, I'm going to answer calls. So, okay, you're back. You're back. Yeah. I can hear you now. Okay, please go ahead and finish before I pick up the call.
Yeah, what I was trying to say was that, that those Arab countries, those Arab nations supported the struggle of the black people in Southern Africa, ANC, and Umkhonto Isizwe. That is the spear of the nation. That's the armed wing of the ANC in South Africa during the struggle against apartheid rule. And they stood by us as brothers. They supported, they funded, and they played a key role. So at a time when, and we were eventually liberated, our brothers in South Africa, eventually you now have majority rule and everybody's happy. And now South Africa is a shining light to the entire world. Now, let's look at this now. We must reciprocate as Africans and as people of the world and stand by the oppressed people of Palestine. Our Arab brothers are being terrorized in the Middle East, the Palestinians particularly, and it's now for us to reciprocate and stand by them, regardless of religion, regardless of our ethnicity, and so on and so forth. And that's precisely, what we are doing today. But going back to your question about the nature of government in the Middle East and the double standard Americans, the double standards Americans are legion. I could go on and on about that. America is the real prop. It's the strength behind Israel. But within America itself, things are changing now. Things are changing. People are on the streets coming out against Israel. The university campuses are coming out against Israel. People are saying enough is enough. And people are recognizing it for what it is, a double standard and they're saying we must stand against genocide, we must stand against apartheid, we must stand against madness in Israel, just as we did against Nazi Germany.
Excellent, thank you. Let me answer the calls. When you call, I just want you to mention your name, where you're calling from, and your question. Your question in relation. It's not Nigeria. Chief Fani-Kayode is not here about Nigeria. He's here to talk about the crisis in the Middle East. He's here to talk about the Israeli-Gaza war. All right? So please keep your questions to that, because I know some of you get excited. All right? I'm coming to your calls now. Your name, where you're calling from, and your question, please. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sister. Okay.
Good afternoon. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah.
Yes.
My question is still just that. Fine, we know, because I'm a human being too. I'm a father of kids. So I know how passionate, how emotional it is seeing an innocent soul or innocent souls, going through this needless death. But the point is just that, the two of them has a demand. The Israeli are saying the Hamas...
You haven't answered your question. You're using up a lot of time. The lines...
Yes, this is all I'm just asking. You know, the question.
Okay.
Release them. They release their hostages. Then while the Hamas also asks the Israeli, and the Israeli are saying that they should release first, then they will do. Knowing full well that they are the one at the receiving end. What's the politics, there in all of this? Because that's the basis for their not ceasing the fire now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Chief FFK, if you just write that down, I'm going to answer some more calls. He's saying, what is the politics with both sides saying, release my hostage first, right? I'll come back to you. Let me answer more calls. Hello?
Yeah,
good afternoon. Good afternoon. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Emmanuel, it's painful that I did have opportunity to have to ask the former guest my question.
Oh, Michael Freeman. Don't worry, Emmanuel. I'm so sorry.
Next time you are engaging, please, my questions are...
no. Emmanuel, you can't ask Michael's question to FFK. Right? I'm so sorry. You should have sent it. I'm so sorry that you weren't able to ask him. Do you have a question for FFK? No, he doesn't. Yeah, Michael wanted to ask Michael some questions. He said we didn't get a chance to give him we didn't give him a chance. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
I'm Pastor Balamosi from Surulere.
Okay, Pastor, go ahead. Your question to Chief FFK, please.
Chief FFK is that, did he think that what we think can result into the Third World War?
Okay.
Is he sensing that?
Okay. All right.
And that is sensing that, that's very bad.
Okay.
Is he sensing that can result in the Third World War?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pastor. Right, I'll just take one more and then I'll come to you, Chief. Hello?
Okay.
Good afternoon.
I greet you.
I greet you too. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My Romito is my name. I'm calling from Lekki.
Okay, go ahead with your question, please.
My question, why is FFK so bitter?
Why?
Why is he so bitter?
Bitter about what?
About Iran and Israel.
What has that got to do with the topic? Hello?
Good afternoon. Good evening, Cecilia.
Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, Rapuchuku is my name. Calling from Arimocho.
Okay, go ahead, Rapuchuku.
Okay. And their guest.
Yes.
I greet you.
Okay.
Okay. I sympathize with the people of Gaza in what is happening there right now.
Okay.
You know, the killings, especially the innocent ones. And my question is this. Regarding the 7th October, which triggered the recent differences, why is it that not even one Palestinians have found any reason to condemn Hamas?
Okay.
Secondly, what do you think Benjamin Netanyahu or Israel is trying to achieve in this their continued bombardment?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Rapuchuku. Chief, did you hear all of that? So one of the key questions was, do you think this is going to expand, enlarge, turn into World War III. Rapachuku just asked, he said, why hasn't he heard Palestinians condemning Hamas? And what exactly is Netanyahu trying to achieve? I think the second one is a really good question. What do you think? Oh,
quickly respond by saying the first one was, is this likely to be could it turn into World War III? Was that the question?
Yes.
No, we're starting with the last questions because the chronology is that there were earlier questions. But let's start with what you've asked me now.
Yeah.
Which is that he asks whether it can turn into World War III. Is that the question?
Yes.
I wasn't really...
Yes, it is.
Sure. But the answer to the question is very simple. If we're not careful, or if they are not careful, of course it will end into Third World War III, simply because if the Jews continue to slaughter people like this, other countries will now take a strong position against them, regardless of the fact that the Americans and the Europeans in the main are behind them. And by the way, it's not all the Europeans. Some are against Israel. But you'll simply have people lining up. The Russians, the Chinese, the Turks, the Iranians, and so many other so-called developing countries or southern countries from the economic south are now aligning solidly behind the Palestinian people. And even the Arab Gulf states, the moderate states, Egypt, Jordan, and so on and so forth, are also very uneasy what's happening. And they will all eventually align and go on one side, whilst the Americans will be isolated with a few European allies like Britain and so on and so forth on the other. And there you have a situation where anything can happen. If, for example, Iran had been sufficiently provoked and they rained fire on Israel, the next thing that would have happened would have been the Americans would have responded forcefully, and then all hell would have broken loose. And it's an incremental thing. World wars start incrementally, and it'll just simply expand. And it will engulf the whole world, including Africa. We would all take sides. And that's the reality of the situation. That's why this situation is extremely dangerous, and we have to be very careful. And we hope and pray that good reason will prevail and Israel will stop being the monster that it has turned into. The second question, please.
The second question, again, I'm remembering the last one, which is, what does Netanyahu want?
What Netanyahu wants is to establish a nation called Greater Israel. He and his Likud party and the right-wing members of his government, like Itava, the National Security Minister, I'm sorry, some of these Israeli names are difficult to remember.
Yeah.
But National Security Minister and all, most of his other ministers, what they envisage, these are right-wing, hardline people. And what they envisage and what they want is a situation whereby Israel controls everything from Egypt right up onto the borders of Iran, taking over the whole of the Middle East, taking over everything, all those Arab kingdoms, all those Gulf states. They want it to be part of Israel. They want Egypt to be part of Israel. They want everything, literally from the river to the sea, to be Israeli dominated and Israeli controlled as part of a greater, wider Israeli state, and subjugate all those millions of Arabs and turn them into slaves under them. That's what they really want. And in order to establish that, they keep relying on some ancient biblical text saying that the Jews have been given all the land by God, and nobody else really matters. And in fact, everybody else, all the Arabs, millions of Arabs that live in that space are nothing but the descendants of Amalek. They are Amalekites and Moabites that should be wiped out off the face of the earth, according to Old Testament theology and Israeli history. And this, of course, has no place in the civilized world, this type of racist and genocidal rhetoric. But that's essentially what they're trying to establish. And most important of all, they want to control everything, all the oil, everything in that region, even the oil in the sea they want to control, because there is oil there, in order to be able to fuel the West. As I said earlier, they're a satellite of the West. So that's really the objective, but it cannot work. You know why? You have millions of Arabs, not just Palestinians, millions of Arabs within that space who will simply say no. There's also one more thing, which a lot of people don't know about the struggle. And that's the struggle or the fight over a place called the Al-Aqsa Mosque, or where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is in Jerusalem. And it's all tied into end-time prophecy. That particular spot is where the Jews want to build what they describe, I believe it's the third temple. They want to build it there. Unfortunately for them, on that same spot lies the second most holy mosque in the whole of the Muslim world. That's the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They want to knock the Al-Aqsa Mosque down and establish a second temple on that same spot. And, and they believe that will usher in the glorious age of a Jewish Messiah, not Jesus, who they don't believe in, and who they believe is burning in hell in a pot of feces. That's what their Talmud says. They believe in another Jewish Messiah that will come to rule the whole world. So it's all tied up into this very strange spiritual vision that they have. And in order to achieve that, they need to knock down Al-Aqsa Mosque. If Al-Aqsa Mosque is knocked down, you know very well, the whole Islamic world will go crazy. And believe me, that will be the beginning of an intifada, probably the Third World War, and that will be the end of virtually all of us. So this is what they're toying with, and that is why Netanyahu has to be stopped.
Okay, let me answer more calls. The lines.
There's some other questions. Can I just say?
Do you have it? There's one more question.
I have it. Please tell me.
Please go ahead.
The what?
How the Palestinians not condemning Hamas?
He also asked about the issue of
why
before that
Palestinians are not condemning Hamas?
Yeah, why is it that the Palestinians themselves are not condemning Hamas? Yeah. Well, that's a very good question. The answer is very simple. Why is it that the Black Africans, the members of the people within South Africa that were being oppressed under white minority rule in apartheid South Africa, why is it that the black people in that country and Africans generally refuse to condemn the activities of the armed wing of the ANC? Why is it? Why would you expect an Arab to condemn the activities of a group that are simply fighting for Arab liberation and to break the yoke of subjugation from the Jews? No sane Arab would do that. They may say, well, it's unfortunate to kill women and children, but they're not going to condemn that organization. If I were an Arab, if I were a Palestinian, I believe me, and I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. If my people were subject to the sort of things that the Palestinians have been subjected to by the state of Israel, I would not just be a member of Hamas, I would be a member of the Al-Qassam Brigade. I would fight physically against this tyranny. You cannot deny them that right to defend themselves and fight for their very existence. And I don't expect any Arab to condemn Hamas or to stand or speak against Hamas, because Hamas is fighting for them. So that's that one. He also asked, somebody else asked a question about the release of prisoners. Why don't they just release?
Yes.
Why don't they just release
what is the politics of that? Yes.
Yeah. Why don't the Palestinian, the Hamas just release these people? Well, the answer to that is this. Before they do that, surely they have the right to require the state of Israel to release literally 10,000 prisoners that they have had within their dungeons for so many years. 10,000 Palestinians, many of them women and children, who have done absolutely nothing. They just lock them up, they torture them, they brutalize them. Why don't the Jews release those people first? And that's the argument. You don't expect Hamas to simply release people after 30,000 of their citizens, women and children, have been bombed and killed and slaughtered, after virtually 90% of their infrastructure has been knocked out, after hospitals, places of worship, churches, mosques, everybody, everything, journalists, everybody, UN workers, aid workers, medical practitioners have all been slaughtered. You now say they should release the prisoners. Nobody would do that. They will fight to the end until Israel sees reason and stop killing their people. And I would not blame them for doing that. Why? Because I understand what it is to suffer the pain. One of your questioners asked me, said that why do I feel so bitter about it? I don't feel bitter. I feel anger, outrage, in the same way that I felt outrage when the Jews were killed by Nazi Germany, by Hitler, 6 million. When I read about it, I felt a sense of outrage. It is indecent. It is inhuman. I feel outrage. And he also should feel a sense of outrage. Why? During our civil war in Nigeria, 3 million Igbos were killed in the civil war. 3 million of them were killed. We don't talk about it. We don't like to refer to it. But it is an outrage. The Turks killed over 1 million Armenians. Christian Armenians were killed by the Turks. It is an outrage. The Americans wiped out the red Indian race. It is an outrage. I could go on and on. There are so many outrages in the history of the world, and we must be outraged by these things. If we're not outraged by them, it means we become animals, and that is why I'm not bitter, but I have a sense of outrage, and I feel for the Arabs because they're human beings. I feel for Muslims, I feel for Christians, and everybody else that has been a victim of genocidal Israel.
I think I heard somebody say the other day that being against against abuse and genocide across the world, and having sympathy for those who are kidnapped in Israel is not mutually exclusive.
Absolutely.
We can be both. And
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think that's what people really forget. That it's not about taking one side. It's about focusing.
humanity.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
It's got to be about humanity. And
Oh.
oh my word, I always need to have you longer than an hour. I don't know how we're going to do this because I've got, like, they're telling me I've got, 6 minutes left. I've got lines going off and I haven't spoken to you. Please, people, wait calling. Let me give you 2 minutes. I want to talk to you about what's happening with the humanitarian aid to Gaza. Do you think Israel is now committing has escalated or gone up a few gears to now do a sort of, implement their campaign by starvation, their campaign against the Gazans by starvation?
What they are doing is outrageous. They are not giving them enough food. They have implemented a policy of starvation of women and children and innocent Palestinians. If they're not bombing them, if they're not killing them, if they're sending in soldiers to kill everybody and bomb everything in sight, including their own troops and their own people, it's gone off.
No, I can hear you. It hasn't. It hasn't.
Okay.
It hasn't.
Their own
Don't worry, I'm keeping an eye. Oh, it's now frozen. Can we do something quickly? I need all the minutes I can get. Who's gonna fix this for me? Technical, are you able to do anything? I know it's not from our side, but I'm just hoping you can do some sort of magic because we don't have time. Not a time to go off. Come on, network. Not the time to go off. I know you guys are calling. I can't. The connection to Chief FFK has frozen, and I don't like it when the network gets jealous at a time like this. We don't have time. I'm going to answer your calls and see what I can do. Okay, very quickly. You have 30 seconds, if that. 30 seconds. I may have to interrupt you and go to him if we come back. Hello?
Oh,
yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Quickly, very quickly. We don't have time. Yes, Babarinde, go ahead.
My question is, where is the Arab solidarity? With all this bombardment, killing of innocent children, like this Arab world, Iran, Syria, Jordan, Egypt. Where is the Arab solidarity? I have expected them at least to put boots on the ground in Gaza and, fight this Israeli of a nation. So that is my question. Where is the Arab solidarity?
Okay, all right. Stay listening because I may be able to answer that for you if we don't get the chief back. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What's your name and where are you calling from and what is your question, please?
My name is Samuel. I'm calling from Mowe.
Okay, what's your question, please?
My question is that when things are going bad like this, we should not escalate it. But my big question now is that why can't we stop Iran from supporting Hamas and also stop you supporting Israel?
Okay, thank
you. In peace from both sides, so that there will be peace in the Middle East. Don't let us escalate what is on ground.
Okay, thank you. Hello? Oops. Okay. Those two questions I'm going to try and answer. We're trying to get the chief back before we run out of time. We've literally got 3 minutes. I'm really doing my best. Arab solidarity, you mentioned about having boots on the ground. Well, if you've noticed, the one thing the Iranians have done is to do their very, very best to be as constrained and as controlled as possible when faced the very direct provocation from Israel, from the United States. Israel accused Iran of being behind October 7th. Iran has said over and over and over again, we have nothing to do with it, even though, we understand we are part of the axis of resistance. We had nothing. We did not aid October 7th, yet Israel believes otherwise. So that's the one thing. Putting boots on the ground in Gaza would have escalated the war, which is what nobody wants. Iran doesn't want a war. As I said, if you watch how Iran has responded since October 7th, they've been very, very, very measured. Yet they've been provoked over and over and over again. That's when US have said, now they do not want war. Anthony Blinken said this morning, we will not be helping Israel with their response. We do not want war, even though we respect Israel's right to respond. What was the other question? Gosh, I've forgotten the other question now because I'm trying to get myself off this seat because Yvonne is here and I didn't allow her to do her news at 5 o'clock and I've lost the connection to Chief FFK. Gosh, what a show we've had today. What a show. It's been fire for fire for fire. I'm hoping, are we able to get Chief? Can you bring Chief back? He's in the waiting room for him to close. Are we able to? Technical team, are we able to, or shall I just close? Are we able to bring him back? Okay, looks like, yeah, we don't have him. Do we have him back? Yes, I think he's coming back. 1 second. Have we got him back? No, we don't have him back. I'm looking at Lagos, Nigeria, wherever you're listening from, across the world. Literally, there's a mouse going up and down in front of me, in the screen in front of me, and I see that they're trying to get the chief back to come and give us his final words. So that's why you keep asking me, you keep hearing me say that. Is he back? Is he not back? Is he back? Is he not back? Oh, is he back? Yes, he's connecting to audio. I can see that. 1 second, Yvonne, please forgive us for the news. Lagos, Nigeria, please forgive us. Right, Chief, thank you. Thank God I've got you back. The news are about to kick me off their chair at the moment.
Right.
So I want you to close. No, not at all, not your fault. Please, I want you to leave us with some, your inspirational words and factual words as you often do. Please, I'll give you 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Over to
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is incumbent on us all to fight against evil wherever we find it. Even if we find it in our own backyard, we must speak against it. We must fight against it. We must stand for those that have been oppressed, those that are being slaughtered, those that are being cheated. The Palestinian people today are on the verge of being made extinct. The Jews want to wipe them out completely. The Zionists want to eliminate them. And we must stand with them. We must for them. We must fight for them. And there is hope for the future. And I want to leave you with that.
Okay.
There was a time in the history of Israel where a great man by the name of Yitzhak Rabin, who was minister, went out of his way to ensure there was peace between Israel and Egypt and some of the other Arab nations. He succeeded, but he was killed by somebody that is a supporter of Netanyahu and the right-wing Zionists in Israel. He was killed simply for establishing peace with Egypt. Now, if Yitzhak Rabin could come up with that kind of peaceful agenda, even though he was a Jew, and even though he was the leader of the Jewish state, then there must be other Jews somewhere that can stand up for the people of Israel and remove people like Netanyahu from power and have a more moderate, reasonable, rational leadership in Israel that is prepared to live side by side with the Arabs and the Palestinians and give others their due. That's the hope. Without that, I see nothing but sadness and misery and tragedy in the future. And I hope that when that time comes, if and when it comes, that the whole world stands against the Zionist state, speaks against them, fights against them, opposes them in every realm of society and humanity, and ensure that their evil will stop. That's my message. We must stand together with them.
Thank you so much, Chief Femi Fani-Kayode. It's been an absolute wonderful hour spent with you.
Thank you very much
have
indeed.
a wonderful weekend. And we'll have you back. You're going to be back.
Thank you. Anytime. You're most welcome. Thank you. All the best.
You
Shalom.
too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye for now.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens.